Hello everyone, and what's up with you? It might feel a little early with the sun still shining brightly on this first day of September, but you know how we weather folks are. We're always looking ahead. Today we're taking our very first peek at the winter of 2025 to 2026. It's a time of year that brings so much, from cozy nights by the fire to the thrill of the first snowfall. For many, winter is a season of celebration and tradition. Understanding what the weather might have in store helps us plan for everything. Whether it's a holiday trip to see family or just knowing when to get those snow tires put on the car, this is our preliminary look, a conversation starter about what's on the horizon. The anticipation for a winter forecast is something special. I feel it every year. Will it be a snow lover's dream or a mild season perfect for those who prefer to avoid the shovel? These early predictions are like the first few chapters of a great book. They set the scene and give us clues about the main characters, in this case the major weather patterns that will shape our season. We look at long-range models, ocean temperatures, and atmospheric signals from around the globe to piece together this initial puzzle. It's an exciting process, and we love sharing it with you every step of the way, giving you the inside scoop on what to expect. Of course, forecasting months in advance is a massive undertaking. It's part science, part art, and it involves a whole lot of data. We're talking about complex computer models and analyzing historical trends to see how this year might compare to winters past. This early outlook is designed to give you a broad idea of the coming season. Think of it as a roadmap. The final destination is a safe and prepared winter, and this forecast is the first leg of that journey. It helps homeowners, city planners, and even farmers get a head start on their preparations for the colder months that are just around the corner. So, grab a warm drink and settle in. We're going to walk through this forecast together, region by region. We'll talk about temperature trends where the snow might pile up, and the global climate drivers that are pulling the strings behind the scenes. Remember, this is just the beginning of the story. The atmosphere is always changing, and we'll be here to update you as the picture becomes clearer. But for now, let's dive into this exciting first look at what Mother Nature might be cooking up for the winter of 2025 to 2026. It's going to be an interesting ride. Alright, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. The first question on everyone's mind is always, will it be cold? The temperature forecast for this upcoming winter looks to be a tale of two halves, with a distinct pattern setting up across the country. For our friends in the Pacific Northwest and across the northern tier of the United States, think Washington, Montana, North Dakota, and into the Great Lakes region, the models are pointing toward a colder than average season. This means you'll want to have those heavy coats, hats, and gloves ready to go. The chill could be quite persistent, bringing a classic old-fashioned winter feel to these areas. Now, let's swing down to the southern portion of the country. From California and Arizona, stretching across Texas and into the southeast, including Florida and Georgia, the outlook is leaning in the opposite direction. We are anticipating a winter with warmer than average temperatures for many of you. This doesn't mean you can put away all your sweaters, of course. You'll still have some chilly days and cold snaps, but the overall trend for the 3-month winter period suggests that the warmth will win out more often than not. This could mean fewer hard freezes and a more temperate season for millions of people enjoying the southern sunshine. What about the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic? This is where things get really interesting and a bit more complicated. This region looks like it could be a major battleground between the cold air to the north and the milder air to the south. This could lead to a real roller coaster of temperatures. One week might feel like deep winter, with Arctic air plunging down from Canada, and the next could bring a surprising thaw. This back and forth pattern can be quite volatile, so for everyone from Maine down to Virginia, being prepared for rapid changes will be the key to navigating this winter season successfully. For our neighbors to the north in Canada, a similar pattern is expected to unfold. Western Canada, including British Columbia and Alberta, is likely to experience a colder than normal winter, much like the adjacent United States states. This could bring an extended season for ski resorts in the Canadian Rockies. Meanwhile, Eastern Canada, particularly the maritime provinces, might see more of that temperature battle. They could experience swings between very cold and milder periods, depending on which air mass is dominating at any given time. It's a dynamic setup that promises a very active weather season for the entire continent. Now for my favorite part, the snow. Because what's winter without a little bit of the white stuff? Based on the temperature patterns we just talked about, we can start to figure out where the snow is most likely to fly. With that colder air locked in across the northern tier of the United States, these are the regions with the highest potential for above-average snowfall. The Great Lakes area, in particular, could be in for a very active season. Cold air moving over the relatively warmer waters of the lakes is the perfect recipe for significant lake-effect snow. So cities like Buffalo, Cleveland, and Syracuse should be ready for some impressive totals. The Rocky Mountains and the Pacific Northwest are also primed for a snowy winter. The combination of cold temperatures and an active storm track suggests that mountain passes and ski resorts from Washington and Oregon down through Colorado and Utah could see plentiful snowfall. This is fantastic news for the ski industry and for the region's water supply, as a healthy mountain snowpack is crucial for replenishing reservoirs in the spring and summer. So, if you're a skier or snowboarder, this could be the year to plan that big trip out west. The conditions are shaping up to be excellent for a long and snowy season on the slopes. In the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, that battleground of temperatures makes the snowfall forecast a bit trickier. The potential for big storms is definitely there. When cold air from the north collides with moisture moving up from the south, you get the perfect setup for a classic nor'easter. However, the exact storm track will be critical. A slight shift can mean the difference between a foot of snow in Boston, a messy mix of ice and sleet in New York City, and just a cold rain in Washington, D.C. These areas will need to watch each storm system very closely, as the precipitation type could change from one town to the next. What about the areas that might see less snow? With the forecast for warmer than average temperatures across the south, it's likely that these regions will see below average snowfall. While an occasional flurry isn't out of the question, especially in the higher elevations of the southern Appalachians, big snow events are not expected to be a common feature this winter. For many, this will be welcome news, meaning fewer travel disruptions and less shoveling. But for the kids hoping for a snow day in places like Atlanta or Dallas, they might have to keep their fingers crossed a little harder this year. While snow often steals the spotlight in a winter forecast, it's important to look at the total precipitation picture, which includes rain, sleet, and freezing rain. The overall storm track this winter looks to be quite active, particularly across the eastern half of the country. The clash between the cold northern air and the warm, moist southern air is a powerful engine for storm development. This suggests that the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, and the East Coast could see above-average precipitation. In the colder northern areas, this will translate to snow, but further south, it will likely mean a wetter-than-normal winter with more rainy days. This active pattern could bring some much-needed moisture to certain areas, but it also raises concerns about potential flooding. For regions in the southeast that are expecting a warmer and wetter winter, the ground may become saturated over time. This means that even moderate rainfall events could lead to localized flooding, especially in low-lying areas and near rivers and streams. It will be important for residents in these areas to stay aware of flood watches and warnings throughout the season. Proper drainage and preparedness can make a big difference when the rain just keeps on coming. Conversely, parts of the Southwest and Southern California might be facing a drier-than-average winter. While the Pacific Northwest is expected to be wet, the storm track may bypass the southern end of the West Coast more often than not. This is a concern for a region that relies heavily on winter precipitation to combat long-term drought conditions. A dry winter could exacerbate water supply issues heading into 2026. This is a trend we will be monitoring very closely, as its impacts can be felt for many months after the winter season has ended. In Canada, we see a similar split. British Columbia is expected to have a wet and snowy winter, which is great news for their forests and water resources. However, the prairie provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan might find themselves on the drier side of the pattern. Central and eastern Canada, much like the northeastern United States, are likely to experience an active storm track, leading to above-average precipitation. This means a mix of significant snow, ice, and rain events are possible, making for a complex and challenging winter forecast across a large portion of the country. So what's causing all of these patterns? To understand a long-range forecast, we have to look at the major climate drivers, the big-picture phenomena that steer our weather on a global scale. One of the most famous is the El Niño Southern Oscillation, or ENSO. This refers to the temperature of the waters in the central and eastern Pacific Ocean. When the waters are warmer than average, we have an El Niño. When they are cooler than average, we have a La Niña. Right now, the models are suggesting we are heading into a weak to moderate La Niña phase for the winter of 2025 to 2026. A classic La Niña pattern often brings colder and wetter conditions to the Pacific Northwest and the northern tier of the US, while the south tends to be warmer and drier. Does that sound familiar? It aligns perfectly with the temperature and precipitation forecasts we've just discussed. La Niña typically strengthens the polar jet stream and directs it across the northern part of the country, bottling up the coldest air there. This is a key piece of the puzzle and gives us more confidence in this early outlook. It's a powerful signal that helps shape the entire winter season across North America. But La Niña isn't the only player on the field. We also have to watch other oscillations like the Arctic Oscillation, AO, and the North Atlantic Oscillation, or NAO. These patterns relate to air pressure differences in the high latitudes and can have a huge impact on our weather. A negative phase of the AO, for example, can weaken the polar vortex and allow frigid Arctic air to spill southward into the United States. Even in a generally mild winter pattern, a sudden shift in the AO can bring a dramatic and intense cold snap. These oscillations are less predictable long-term, so they add an element of uncertainty to the forecast. Think of it like this: La Niña sets the overall theme for the winter, but the AO and NAO are the wild cards that can shake things up from week to week. They determine whether that cold air stays locked up in Canada or comes plunging down into the Midwest and Northeast. The interaction between all these climate drivers is incredibly complex. Forecasters spend countless hours analyzing how they might work together or against each other to produce the weather we experience on the ground. It's this global dance of atmospheric and oceanic patterns that makes long-range forecasting both a challenge and, honestly, a fascinating science. You might be wondering, how do we put all of this information together? Well, it takes a whole team of people and some very powerful tools. Modern weather forecasting relies heavily on sophisticated computer models. These models, which are run on massive supercomputers, take in current atmospheric data from weather balloons, satellites, and ground stations all over the world. They then use complex mathematical equations to simulate how the atmosphere will behave in the future. For long-range forecasts, we look at climate models like the American CFSV2 and the European ECMWF, which give us a glimpse of the weather patterns months in advance. But, the models are just one part of the story. A good forecaster never relies on a single source. We also use high-quality mapping tools to visualize all this data. Companies like Trilogy Maps provide incredibly detailed digital maps that allow us to layer different pieces of information on top of each other. We can look at temperature anomalies on one layer, jet stream patterns on another, and snowfall probabilities on a third. This really helps us see the connections and build a more complete and coherent forecast. It's a bit like being a detective piecing together clues from different sources to solve the case of the coming winter. We also draw on the expertise of specialized weather analytics services. Places like WeatherBell, analytics and data portals like Pivotal Weather and Tropical Tidbits provide in-depth analysis and a wide array of model data that we can dig into. These resources are invaluable for comparing different model outlooks and understanding the subtle differences between them. It's important to see if there's a consensus among the models, or if they are showing different solutions. When many different tools and experts are all pointing to a similar outcome, our confidence in the forecast grows significantly. And of course, we always cross-reference our work with the official sources. The National Weather Service and its various branches, like the Climate Prediction Center and the Weather Prediction Center, are the gold standard. They provide the official government forecasts and are an essential part of the process. By combining the raw power of computer models, the visual clarity of advanced maps, and the collective wisdom of expert meteorologists, we can create the most accurate and reliable forecast possible for you and your family. Now it's time for a little bit of what I like to call weather reality. As excited as we are about this early look at winter, it's crucial to remember that this is a preliminary forecast. We are looking at trends and probabilities over a 3-month period, not a day-by-day prediction for your specific town. The atmosphere is a wonderfully complex and sometimes chaotic system. So think of this forecast as a sketch. As we get closer to winter, we'll be able to add more details and color, and the final picture will become much clearer. Things can and will change. Long-range forecasting is a science of percentages, not certainties. When we say an area is likely to be colder than average, it doesn't mean every single day will be frigid. It means that when you average out all the days of the season, the final number is expected to be below the long-term normal. You can still have surprising warm spells within a cold pattern, and vice versa. That's why it's so important to stay tuned for updates. The forecast will be refined in October and then again in November, as new data comes in and the models get a better handle on the evolving patterns. One of the biggest sources of uncertainty, as we mentioned, are the smaller scale oscillations like the AO and NAO. A sudden shift in one of these patterns can temporarily override the larger influence of La Niña, leading to weather that is completely opposite of the seasonal forecast. For example, a strong negative AO could bring an Arctic blast to the southeast, even in a winter that is predicted to be warmer than average overall. These are the kinds of developments that we can only see a week or two in advance, not 3 months out. So, please use this forecast as a guide for planning, not as an absolute guarantee. It's a tool to help you think ahead. Should you get the snowblower serviced early? Based on this forecast, if you live in the Great Lakes, that's probably a good idea. Should you cancel a trip to Florida in January because of a single cold forecast? Absolutely not. The most important thing is to be aware of the possibilities and to check back for updated forecasts as the season gets closer. We'll be here with you every step of the way, tracking the changes and keeping you informed. With all this talk about snow, ice, and roller coaster temperatures, the most important message is always about safety. Winter weather can be beautiful, but it can also be dangerous. This early forecast is your first reminder to start thinking about your winter preparedness plan. This is the time to check on your home's insulation, make sure your heating system is working properly, and assemble a winter emergency kit for both your home and your car. This kit should include things like blankets, a flashlight, extra batteries, non-perishable food, water, and a first aid kit. When winter storms are in the forecast, it's vital to listen to the advice of your local officials and weather authorities. During dangerous or life-threatening events, the National Weather Service and in Canada, Environment Canada, are your primary sources for official watches and warnings. These are the alerts that can save lives. Pay close attention to winter storm warnings, blizzard warnings, and ice storm warnings. If travel is advised against, please stay off the roads. The safety of first responders and yourself depends on heeding these official instructions. Staying informed has never been easier. Beyond watching us here on television, you can follow updates from reliable weather sources on social media and through weather apps. Many forecasters, including our friends at channels like Direct Weather, provide daily updates on platforms like YouTube, Facebook, and Discord. These resources can give you a continuous stream of information as a storm system approaches and evolves. Having multiple trusted sources for weather information ensures you won't miss any critical updates when you need them most. Finally, don't forget to check on your neighbors, especially the elderly or those who may need extra help during severe weather. A strong community is one of the best defenses against the challenges of winter. Shoveling a neighbor's walkway or making sure they have enough supplies can make a world of difference. Winter is a season that we all experience together. And by preparing ahead of time, staying informed, and looking out for one another, we can ensure it's a safe and enjoyable season for everyone. So there you have it. That's the first look at what the winter of 2025 to 2026 may have in store for us. It looks to be a classic La Niña winter with a colder, snowier pattern across the north and a warmer, drier season for the south. The East Coast is shaping up to be a battleground, promising a dynamic and exciting season full of temperature swings and the potential for significant storms. It's a fascinating setup, and we'll be watching with great interest to see how it all unfolds in the coming months. These early forecasts are more than just science. They are part of the seasonal rhythm of our lives. They give us something to talk about, to plan for, and to anticipate. Whether you're a snow lover eagerly awaiting the first flake or someone who prefers to curl up with a good book and wait for spring, knowing what's coming helps us connect with the natural world around us. It's a reminder that even in our modern, fast-paced lives, we are still guided by the timeless cycles of the seasons. Remember to use this information as a broad guide to get you thinking and preparing. The story of this winter is just beginning to be written, and we'll be here to read you every new page as it comes out. Keep checking back for updates as we get closer to the season, and always be ready for the unexpected twists and turns that Mother Nature loves to throw our way. That's what makes tracking the weather so much fun, isn't it? It's a new adventure every single day. Thank you for joining me for this early winter outlook. We hope you found it helpful and informative. Get those coats ready, stock up on the hot chocolate, and get set for whatever the season brings. Whether it's snowy, mild, wet, or wild, we'll get through it together. And that's what's up with you. Stay safe, stay warm, and enjoy the beautiful autumn days ahead. We'll see you again soon with the next update.